for ThirtyAndNerdy.com. This is Matt.
And this is Gina.
And today we're going to be talking about The Legend of Korra.
You know, I was just thinking we should probably number our podcast, like episode 10, episode 11.
It would make things easier.
It would. Maybe we should just like randomly pick a number for this one.
I mean, we sort of rebooted. Well, no, because we got I was going to say with like the Twilight Princess podcast, but then we've got like the stuff that I've done with like Scott also, which is like part of like when we reboot the website and things like that. Yeah, we'll have to take a look at it. Maybe after this one, we'll actually.
Maybe we say this is sort of like our season 2 podcast or something, like a whole new.
Oh, interesting. That's a good way of putting it.
Let's do that.
Okay, so this is season 2, episode 2.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, Twilight Princess would have been, or is season 2, episode 1.
All right, cool. So at least we got a numbering system going on.
Yeah, okay, cool. So, yep, today we're talking about Legend of Korra. Basically, we binge-watched not only all of Avatar: The Last Airbender, but then The Legend of Korra immediately after it. We tried getting into Last Airbender. Well, you saw Last Airbender years and years and years ago.
Yes, I saw the whole series several years ago, and
Yeah.
had been trying to get you to watch it for the past, I don't know, however couple of years that we've been together. But yeah, I saw it and enjoyed it 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of those things. You're raving about it. I always bump into people who rave about it. Everybody says it's kind of like this masterful, like a modern piece of like animation and stuff like that. And Last Airbender, I couldn't get into it immediately because of just how kind of like the same thing with the perception of like Naruto, with it being too like kiddie, and like a too
Nickelodeon.
Yeah, too Nickelodeon. Big quotes around Nickelodeon. And that's actually what happened with the first episode. Long story short, I gave it another chance and got a few episodes in and began to realize why people loved it. With as funny as it was and action-packed and just, But anyways, we wanted to watch Korra desperately because it seemed like the world was raving about it. And it got to the point where like the series had its finale and everybody was raving about that also. And we were like, all right, now we're going to do it right now. We're just going to watch it all and we're going to catch up. And that way, if Nickelodeon ever does another Avatar-based series, like we can watch it with everybody. Okay, and so because we finally finished it, and we've actually had, it's been like a couple weeks since we finished it, maybe a few weeks even.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, but we've had time, like we talk about it almost on a daily basis still, and we've had time to kind of like set our immediate reactions and emotions aside, and really, I feel like we're at a point where we can have this conversation, and it won't be as emotionally charged in like a sort of negative way as we sort of initially felt when we finished season 4. Like we can look at it a lot more, like objectively.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like the 2 days after we finished watching it, it was like nonstop back and forth conversation about it. And so, yeah, it kind of gave us a little bit of time to delve into each season and likes and dislikes and things that we love, things that we thought we could have done better. But yeah, we've definitely kind of level-headed ourselves out on that.
Yeah. Okay, and so then before we get into like the meat of things, because I suspect that we will unapologetically end up in like spoiler territory and things like that, we should probably say stop listening now if you intend to watch it and don't want things, potentially spoiled for you, like story beats and things like that. And that like overall, like, yes, go watch it. Like, I highly recommend watching it, and yes, watch Last Airbender first. Yes. Don't just watch Korra, go watch Last Airbender.
Take the time to invest in it. So if you...
In the world.
Exactly.
Yes.
So if you're not, like Matt was, if you're not too fond of like the childish humor or whatnot, give yourself a couple of episodes to invest in it and to understand what the humor is like. Because, you think, oh, Nickelodeon, these are preteens or whatnot characters. Because you start to appreciate it and the humor just goes along with it and it's not childish anymore. It's those characters that you love and you love their personalities and
their
you love
quirks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you start to just really become much more fond of the humor.
Yes. Okay. So this is actually like a good segue. Like the first thing that I wanted to talk about was the emotional impact of seeing familiar characters from The Last Airbender, but seeing them into Korra, which takes place a good chunk of time. Like, I don't, how many years would you say? Like,
at least 80
80-ish years
Yeah,
into the future
probably.
after Last Airbender. And so characters that were young, that were like teenagers or even kids in Last Airbender, you see them, you catch up with them in Korra from the very first episode, and they're old. Like in the case of like Katara,
Yeah.
right? Katara, who's a waterbender from Last Airbender. Like you see her as like an old grandmother in the first episode of like Legend of Korra, and you see like a statue of Avatar Aang in Republic City or outside Republic City, kind of like their equivalent of the Statue of Liberty, and you see how he was like memorialized and things like that, and even just imagery like that. At least for us, I bet you so many people like it's almost tear-inducing. Like it evokes a very powerful emotional response. Like without them having to say anything, just seeing it is like, oh, you just like your heart sinks when you realize how much time has passed, right? But it's also breathtaking that is the direction they chose to go. You know?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about Korra is that immediately off the bat, to start this series, you have to know that Aang is gone. Like there cannot be another Avatar without him dying. And whether there are no specifics as to his death, at least none that I picked up on, but you have to understand that like not only is there another Avatar, she's already in her late teens, early 20s, so he's already been gone for a while. So that the main character of this first series, Last Airbender, that we love, that we fell in love with, he's gone. And you have to like and because we watched it back to back, we didn't watch it along with the rest of the world with a 4, 5, 6 year gap, whatever it was in between them. We watched it a couple of days apart. So it's like, oh my God, yes, we watched the series finale of Airbender, and we see the happy ending and we get excited, and then all of a sudden he's gone. It's decades later, and his children and grandchildren are there, but he's not there anymore.
It was shocking.
See Master Katara, older, and you in that first episode, you're like, oh, we see Katara. Who else are we going to see? So throughout the series, you're like, oh man, who else is still alive?
Yes, yeah.
So you get some surprises, and you get some others maybe that made it, some that didn't. As you go along through the series. But that was one of the first things, was that when we started watching, I knew I already had to get used to, okay, well, he's gone. That's just it. It's somebody new and different. Am I going to like this person as much? What kind of avatar are they going to be? But that was, like you just very emotional, I guess.
Yeah. So piggybacking off of that and moving forward, so The Last Airbender, for people who don't know, hopefully you know if you're listening to this, because like I said, spoilers, is pretty much about Aang's journey to save the world, to create balance, to unite the nations of, earth, fire, water, and air, which doesn't really exist anymore except for him. He's the last Airbender. Spoilers. Okay, and so that whole series is about him basically, as I like to put it, trying to accomplish a lifetime of work. Like a lifetime's worth of work and training and stuff like that in under a year, so that he can stop the Fire Lord from basically conquering like everybody. That said, each book of The Last Airbender is about him mastering one of the elements that he doesn't know. You start off and he only knows about air, so book 1 is water, book 2 is earth, book 3 is fire. Whereas when Legend of Korra starts out, she already knows everything except for air, right?
Yeah.
And she's a hothead, and she's kind of like tomboyish. I don't know if that's a good way to describe her. But she's very sure of herself. She's very cocky.
Oh yeah.
And I just thought it was so cool that from the get-go, you already know that you're not going to get the same story again. About an avatar needing to master all the elements in order to like stop, like an impending threat or something like that. Like, she's a badass from the get-go.
Oh yeah.
Aang had to become a badass.
Yeah. And they kind of trick you by still labeling the first chapter air.
Yes.
They kind of make you think we're like, oh wow, they're just going to do a whole repeat of that whole series. But then we realize, of course, we didn't watch it, while it aired, so we already knew that there was only going to be 4 seasons, and we could see the titles of each season. But if you're just watching it right off the bat while it's airing on TV, you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe they're going to do the cycle again, air. But like, no, she already knows these other things, so it kind of lives, entices you a little bit. Like if you were to watch it while it was airing, you'd be like, okay, what's book 2 going to be about? She already knows the other elements, so that was kind of fun. That was a interesting, little tidbit they added in there.
Yeah, it starts with air. Book 2 is spirits. Book 3 is change, and the book 4 is balance.
Yes.
Oh man, it was so good. Okay, so we kind of touched on this, but the one thing that I wanted to ask you, and even though I'm pretty sure you'll agree, just to, I guess, like, iterate a little bit more or expand upon, is this idea of, like, do you think that Korra can be watched without first having seen The Last Airbender?
It can, but there's a lot you're going to miss out on. There's going to be jokes that you're not going to get. There's going to be characters you're not going to be nostalgic over. There's going to be... there's just a different kind of atmosphere. You know, you're not going to have that comparison to be able to see where society was when Aang was young and alive to where society is now, to see how it's advanced. Because they do talk a lot about like the technological advances, and if you hadn't seen it, you're not going to be able to see where they advanced from. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you won't enjoy it nearly as much as somebody who has seen Last Airbender. You're not going to get as much out of it.
Yeah, it's almost interesting in that the show in like the within like the 80 years that span the two seasons, it's almost representative. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. So it's just off the top of my head of kind of like the westernization that happened in Asia, like, you know, as far as like the change of dress and kind of like the Industrial Revolution and things like that, but and how it affected culture and the way people live and talk and how
different cultures were kind of mingling now, and different you know, areas where people didn't have contact before, and now, you know, living next to each other. So.
Yeah, electricity, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly.
Okay, so to summarize that part, you're saying like, yeah, somebody could totally watch Korra and get into it and stuff like that, but really, you're not going to have the same experience if you haven't watched The Last Airbender. And I feel like, especially at this point, if you're going to hop into the series, you owe it to yourself to kind of do it proper. Yeah. You know, getting caught up with it into Korra, maybe when it's airing with the rest of the world, and deciding, oh, I'm just going to start watching this because everybody loves it, is one thing. But now that both series have come and gone, just do it right.
Yeah, exactly.
All right?
You have the time.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Korra's character then. She's a lot different than Aang. In many ways, she is the opposite of Aang.
Yes.
Like, Aang was young and kind of goofy and
unsure of himself.
Yeah, and had so much to learn in regards to, I mean, he had to learn about like his past, and he knew a lot about what was he, like 15 years old or something like
12.
that? He's 12. No, he wasn't even. Wow, he wasn't even a tween. He wasn't a tween yet. Oh, wait, no, or his 12 years. Anyways, whereas he was a lot. I feel like at his most serious moments, he was very humble. In his most serious moments when he wasn't being goofy, whereas Korra from the get-go is a hothead, and she's a show-off, and she's super confident, and if something isn't going her way or she doesn't understand something, in her mind, from her perspective, it's not her that's wrong or doing something wrong or has something to learn. It's her teacher's at fault, or you know, it's whoever's beside her that's trying to help her out or something like that isn't communicating with her well enough, when like really she's pig-headed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. She's known she was the Avatar since she was a kid. You know, you're supposed to learn on your 16th birthday, and she was like, what, 5 when they realized it, and already bending 3 elements. So she knew. Yeah, so she's had that confidence since she was a toddler, knowing who she was and what she was capable of and the power she could attain. So I mean, yeah, you grow up with that almost her entire life, and that's what you're gonna get. Yeah.
What was I gonna say besides that? Did you like her from the onset, or did she have to grow on you?
Oh, she had to grow on me a lot.
Really?
Yeah. See, season 1, I loved. I loved season 1. Thought it was great. But there were parts, I remember when we were watching season 2, like the first half of season 2, and I was like getting annoyed of her because I didn't like her impatience. I didn't like her attitude. I didn't like her indecisiveness. And I was like, oh my God, like, please do not turn her into this character, you know? And it lingered for like the first half of season 2, and I didn't like it. After I had already began to like her in season 1. So yeah, I wavered a little bit.
Yeah, that's weird, right? Like how you can be totally in love with the character and the direction like the show is taking and stuff like that for an entire season, and then for some reason, as soon as you get into season 2, you're like, why do I not like this character all of a sudden?
Exactly. Like, what happened to her? How did this happen? Why is all of a sudden I feel like she's acting differently? And we kind of attributed a lot of that to like the B team of writers, to where like maybe it was a...
No offense, B team, but we feel like this show continually... oh man, dare I say, suffered
Oh yeah, it
from
peaked
having. And I don't know anything about the production of the show or like
Yeah.
how big their teams were, if there truly were multiple teams or different writers going in and out. I'd be
that was just our
fascinated.
assumption, or was our guess.
It felt like one set of people made season 1, and then a different set of people made the beginning of season 2, maybe all of it.
First half,
Yeah.
it seems.
It felt like this. Here's what it felt like. It felt like a masterful team of animators and writers and yada 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 made seasons 1 and 3.
Yes.
And a team of, I'm going to say it this way, a team of people who had a lot more to learn about storytelling and character development worked on seasons 2 and 4.
Yeah, I mean, we were gonna research this, remember? So we had like actual facts to look up and see the writers and stuff. But yeah, it totally felt like they tried to either hand it off to another team, maybe they were working on another project. They tried to hand it off to people who were learning to see what they could do, but you could just sense a completely different atmosphere, different characters, even just like the way they acted, the things that they said. It was a very different. Yeah, it was a very different story, different characters. Throughout all 4 seasons. So
Yeah. I mean, now that we're kind of like touching base on the fact that like we absolutely, we'll say, loved and adored seasons 1 and 3, and we're kind of 2 came together in the end. Don't get us wrong. Like season 2 starts off a little bit rocky.
Boring and slow.
Was it the Northern Water Tribe in 2 or Southern?
Both.
Oh, well, what's the main one you start off in? Like where?
Southern.
Okay, so the Southern Water Tribe, bless their little hearts, weren't as interesting as like what was going on in Republic City.
Exactly.
Republic City was kind of like, think of it as like a newly developed New York City of sorts, and then they move you out into like Minnesota or Alaska or something, like, and that's where they decide to like continue the story.
Yeah.
Is on the farm.
Exactly.
Well, no, there was like a big, I mean, like the Southern Water Tribe's like main city and stuff like that is like a beautiful spectacle, but it wasn't like this bustling place of like industry and commerce and stuff like that. Anyways, I wanted to give like a brief overview of like each season so people can see kind of like what the beats of this whole thing were. And I was just gonna start off by like, kind of like reading the overview that like I typed out for each one, and then maybe we can elaborate on it a little bit to help kind of like flesh it out and like paint a picture of it. It doesn't have to be really long. Okay, so I have like season 1. It's called Air. And in it, Korra needs to learn airbending, but can't because she's not in touch with her more calm, her more spiritual side. Meanwhile, Amon, who, how would you describe Amon? Voiced by Steve Blum, or Bloom, by the way, who he does Wolverine and a bunch of other stuff. I hear him. He's very talented guy, but I hear his voice no matter what kind of character he's trying to perform at this point in his review, or in his career rather, and I'm just like, oh, Steve Blum. Thanks, Steve Blum. Anyways, and Amon, you want to describe him real quick? Am I saying his name right?
Yeah, I think so. He's this sort of faceless, mysterious leader who would like society to be equal. He wants the citizens to be on equal ground. So he thinks it's unfair for there to be benders, for benders to exist, and there to be non-benders. And
elemental benders also, by the way, like people who can control water and fire. And
exactly. So any air, fire, earth bender, he feels like they should be brought down, and he wants to be able to make all citizens equal. So everyone should be a non-bender. Nobody should have some kind of power over anyone else or be able to influence other people in that way, or intimidate people with that way. And so he's rounding up his equalist and his chi blockers, which I think is awesome. People who can temporarily disable a bender's abilities, and he wants, to find a way to make everybody the same.
And one of the most terrifying things about him, especially as somebody who is rooting for Korra and like the friends, the bender friends that she's made and stuff like that, Mako and what's his head? Bolin.
Yeah,
How can I forget? Is that this Amon character somehow, I don't think we ever find out how, has the ability to strip somebody of their bending powers.
Permanent, yes.
Permanently, yeah. Not like a chi blocker where you can strike a pressure point in the body and, prevent it from, make somebody's arm go numb so they can't like shoot fire at you or whatever. Like he has the ability to press his thumb to somebody's forehead and take away their bending abilities.
Yeah, and it's terrifying everybody. Terrifying benders, and he starts making examples out of somewhat like gang leaders or mob bosses. to show everybody this is what's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
These are, this is who I'm starting with.
It's really powerful stuff.
It is.
And eventually, in season 1 or book 1 rather, it leads to kind of like the story of Korra dealing with this guy and also being terrified of him, and kind of like a civil war between like Benders and Equalists and stuff like that, or like the potential for civil war.
Yes, absolutely.
And, oh man, there's some amazing, powerful moments towards the end of the series with like between the confrontations with Amon and Korra and stuff like that. It's just like you need to see it to believe it.
Yeah, when she loses her bending,
yes,
which is fantastic.
It's just like you're biting your nails the whole end of that season. You're just like, oh, every episode, well, at least me.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean.
The end of season 1 was bittersweet, where when she loses her bending, I thought that was fantastic. I thought it was a bold move. I was like, yes, this is great. They took it away. They actually did. They didn't just like tease you with it and think, oh wow, she's the Avatar. It'll never happen to her. And so when she loses it, you get excited. I got excited, but in the last episode, she gets him back.
Yeah, but she gets him back in like the coolest way.
It is really cool, but I feel like it was too soon. It was too easy. What I was hoping for was that season 2 would be a part of her struggle trying to get her powers back. I thought that was going to kind of like spill over, and we were going to see some all kind of crazy spiritual, whatever mojo she has to do to try to get into the spiritual world, get in touch with that side of her.
I
see other gurus and leaders and,
past avatars.
Exactly. And to try and regain that. And then it's like, oh, before the episode's over, she gets it back. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess we have no idea what season 2 is about now. And she has him back.
But you're forgetting one amazing part. And that is, I know you say like, and all of a sudden it happens, but remember that scene where she's on the end of the cliff, she's powerless, or she had airbending in the end.
She had
because she suddenly
exactly.
like she was stripped of her powers, and then she like suddenly kind of like got the hang of airbending. So she had like one element she could battle Amon with and stuff like that, which is really, really cool. She's sitting there on like the edge of the cliff or whatever, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, she thinks that Tenzin, Aang's son, Aang from Last Airbender, Tenzin, who's like an old man in like his 50s or something like that, right?
Her teacher, airbending
teacher. Her teacher, her instructor, is coming up kind of like behind her to, console her or whatever it is that he wants to say. And she turns around, and it's actually like Avatar Aang grown up. And she realizes in that moment, for the first time in her life, she's actually been able to contact a past Avatar for guidance.
Yeah.
And it's in that moment that I forget if he approaches her or what he does. Did he put his thumb to her forehead?
Yeah, he does the same thing.
And gives her all of her powers back and the ability to use the Avatar state.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's incredible.
And that was a great moment, but I felt like, again, it was just too soon. What happened is, like, maybe if he had come and he had consoled her, he had told her, this is what you have to do, or, you have a big journey ahead of you, and you will get it back eventually, that would have been great, but it just kind of happened, I don't know, a little too quickly for me, for my taste.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a brief break here, and then when we come back, let's talk about Season 2's arc, and then also, as we go into Season 3 and 4, mention that Season 3's ending kind of has everything you wanted out of Season 1's ending.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Season 2 is titled Spirits, and in it, Korra's, like, so at the end of Season 1, like, Aang gave her, or she earned, the ability to go into, like, the Avatar state and whatnot, but it's not something that she can control. And
no, it is.
She can control the Avatar state at the beginning of Season 2?
Yeah, she's almost, like I said, the exact opposite of Aang, where Aang struggled with it and couldn't get into it. She can do it at will. Remember, she's on those little air bubbles, racing with the Jinora and the little kids.
Yeah.
And she goes into it to beat them at that race. Yeah, she actually has the willpower. She can control it.
Okay. But, like, so one of the things that happens early on in the season is that the town there is actually being attacked by spirits, by, like, angry spirits who have, like, made their way into, like, the living world and stuff like that. And they're incredibly powerful. And she's actually not even really strong enough to, like, deter their attacks and things like that. And then her uncle enters the picture, who ends up being evil and stuff like that. But, like, Well, yeah, I guess he's evil. I was trying to think if there was like another way to look at him, like from a positive light. It's like, no, he ends up being a big jerk.
Yep.
But one of the things that he actually can do is he can send spirits back to like the spirit realm.
Yeah, he doesn't destroy them. He just kind of like calms them down and lets them go.
Right, and so Korra like soon figures out that there's like a whole spiritual side to being the Avatar that she is absolutely out of touch with.
Yes.
And so one of the other key things that happens in this in the arc of book 2 is through, I guess you could say, like losing her identity temporarily and things like that, she's put into a state where she's able to watch like the past life of like the very first Avatar 1. Mm-hmm. And the segments of like Avatar 1, I forget, is this just like a 2-part thing? Or is it a little bit longer?
Episodes,
yeah. They're done in like this really cool, I'll call it like almost like a Japanese like painting style of like animation.
Minimalist almost. Yeah, it is incredible.
It's an incredible story. At first I remember like the first half, like the first episode, we weren't so sure about it. Like, really? You guys are gonna break from like Korra to like all these episodes in a row that have like actually nothing to do with Korra, but getting that backstory made the whole second half of like season 2 incredible and incredibly meaningful, and just they really pulled it together in the end.
Yeah, because it started off, in my opinion, just slow and boring and kind of annoying. Because, like I said, Korra, like this is why I feel like maybe there was like a different set of writers. They were going a different direction because her attitude kind of changed, where she was very moody and just indecisive and not even so much cocky, but just like annoying. Yeah. And so when you're not even sure where season 2 is going, there's so many like little different things going on. It kind of goes back and forth between Republic City and the South Pole and the North Pole and different characters, where it doesn't even feel like it has a good flow. So when she gets into this comatose-like state and we revisit Avatar 1 in those 3 episodes, you get a break from all this weird up and down kind of unusual storytelling. Yeah. You get a good, solid story of an amazing character with great animation, and you get a better appreciation for the story. So when it comes back, it just ramps up. The end of that second half of season 2 is incredible, where you're getting like the good action scenes, you're getting like the good writing, you're getting the backstory and how it's influencing what she's doing now, you know, and how the battle that she has to eventually fight with her uncle when he merges with Vatu, you know, and you understand that whole thing, and it's just like, it's incredible. Second half just blows me away.
It felt like either B team had a nice long conversation with A team, or A team came in and said like, we got this, guys. We got this.
And we have not researched this. We have we have
absolutely no idea.
No basis if we're actually saying what we're saying makes any sense. But in our minds, watching it, especially back to back, because we didn't have a week in between them, and we were able to watch these episodes, 10 at a time, you could just see the very obvious difference in the quality of the writing. Maybe if you were watching this week to week, it wasn't as apparent.
Week to week, year to year.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't as apparent, but to us, it very much was.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So moving on, book 3, Change. Correct me if I'm wrong, but not only both of our favorites seasons of Korra, but up there with some of like the best storytelling, animation, acting, like everything we've probably ever experienced across any medium, like ever.
If Korra had ended at season 3, it would not have bothered. It would have been perfect. I think it would have been incredible. It would have been just, it was one of those seasons where you are hanging emotionally on a thread on every other episode because of the characters that are being hurt, the storyline that's being told. The villains that they introduce are incredible. They're just, because when you have an evil person who really does believe in like their motive, really believes in their mission, that's what you get. And you have like these great characters who are also very strong physically, emotionally, who will do what it takes to accomplish their goal, and it was the best season. Yeah, you were like you said, one of the best in any animation that I've seen. Yeah.
So at the end of Spirits rather, season 2, book 2, Spirits, essentially what Korra does, in a nutshell, is she decides to leave both of the existing spirit portals open. And what this does is it lets spirits freely move between like the world of the living and the world of spirits. And so book 3, Change, from the get-go is about humans learning how to coexist with spirits. And so you have like Republic City, which I said was like kind of like from season 1, it was sort of like this developing New York City-esque, big metropolis and stuff like that. Suddenly there's vines going through it and there's spirits everywhere causing like car accidents and stuff like that. And people totally don't understand how to like coexist with them. Meanwhile, in the storyline of this game, because she left the spirit gates open, she sort of accidentally, well, actually, no, it's not like an accident. Okay, so the spirit gates are open and people who didn't necessarily have bending potential before suddenly can bend air and water and all sorts of like other elements and stuff like that.
Well,
and
I'm not sure. They only mentioned air.
Oh, that like airbending was coming back to the world?
Yeah, that was like a side effect of it.
Oh, interesting. You're actually right that they... Okay. So book 3 is also about Tenzin and Korra trying to rebuild like the Air Nation, because now there's more airbenders than there ever were, and it's not like just on Tenzin's shoulders to like make lots of babies and
baby airbenders.
Yeah, baby airbenders, and like build the Air Nation army like literally back from like Aang's DNA and stuff like that. But the Red Lotus enters the picture. Do you remember all of their names off the top of your head? All of the members of the Red Lotus?
Well, we don't. We just know the 4 main villains.
So there's 4 main. Oh yeah, you're right. The Red Lotus could be massive. There's like the White Lotus is like this secret organization that you kind of like learn about like throughout Last Airbender and a little bit in Korra and stuff like that. That like Uncle Iroh was a part of, and it was always kind of like cool and mysterious.
Iroh was a part of the White Lotus.
Yeah, White Lotus. Yeah.
Red Lotus kind of branched out once White Lotus became a little too mainstream for them.
Right. And they're kind of like they're extremists who very much want the world to return to balance and things like that. Only their vision of balance and in the world is because the Avatar does not exist. Like the Avatar is gone, and therefore I guess you could say like nature naturally resets itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right?
It's like, nope, we can't have one nation disappear. We got to balance everything out.
And so there's almost like there's 4 main villains in this season, and one of them is an incredibly powerful airbender. There's
Zahir.
What's his name? Zahir?
Zahir,
voiced by Henry Rollins, who's does like a pretty incredible job actually. There's what was the you know the waterbender woman's name?
Oh, I don't. Let me see.
It's okay. But so the thing that's so cool about the waterbender woman is she actually has no arms. And so whenever she bends water or like battles in combat and things like that, the water becomes like her arms are like water, and they can be like sharp scythe-like weapons that turn to ice. They can be like tentacles that like whip and grab people and stuff like that.
And it's crazy because if you watch Last Airbender and you see Katara as this 14-year-old girl trying to learn airbending, she learns it because, there's this move. You have to move your arms this way. You have to extend this way. And it's like, how on earth did this armless woman even learn that she had this power? Like, how incredible must she be that she's able to do it without that extension, that part of her.
Yeah. Remember, I was hypothesizing for a very long time that when they... Oh, yeah, and by the way, in the beginning of the season, all these people are in prison.
Oh, I know.
And get busted out of prison by Zahir.
The most amazing way,
Yeah, and, like, join up with each other. It's incredible. Okay, so and then one of the things that I was hypothesizing was that when they actually imprisoned her, that... there was fear of her actually being a bloodbender, remember? And so I said, like, for some reason, they don't want to just kill her, so she's in prison. And I thought, like, maybe they removed her arms so that she didn't have the ability to bloodbend the guards and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, they never address it. We never know,
they never address it.
But that's a fun theory to think, yeah.
Okay, and so then, so the Earth Elemental... or the Earthbender rather, in their party is actually, he's kind of like a modified version of an Earthbender. He's a lava bender.
Yes.
And so he can bend Earth, but sort of like Earth at the core, sort of. I don't know if it's just like he's bending Earth at the core, like lava, or if he's like mixing his Earthbending with like some sort of like firebending ability also. But he can like literally turn he's not all about like throwing rocks at you and like controlling things like that. He can do all of that, but he can also just turn the ground into lava to devastating effects.
His name is Gazan.
Gazan.
And the airbender, the waterbender is Minghua.
Minghua.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the fourth person who I don't even know how to describe her type of bending. Like the fourth person wasn't actually a firebender necessarily.
She was, but she also had that combustion
she was
mental
like, yeah,
brain
she was like a mental
thing.
bender or combustion bender or something like that also.
Yeah.
She could like project with her mind and actually just like cause combustion, like explosions and things like that. Actually one of the most incredible moments in that season is the way in which, was it Lynn that takes her down like that, or Lynn's sister? I forget.
Lynn's sister, yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, they're we'll talk about that later. That'll be like one of like the highlight moments. Anyways, so it's just like this incredible journey. Like the season's about, like I said, rebuilding the Air Nation and like spirits coexisting with people and stuff like that. Tenzin's brother, like Boomy, finding out that he has like airbender powers, and like all this stuff is going on top of like Korra being hunted by like these 4 extremists of like the Red Lotus and stuff like that. And at first like Korra doesn't actually like take it seriously and stuff like that. And actually she ends up being like incredibly terrified for it. Terrified by the whole experience, which is incredibly intense by the end. And I keep calling it season 3. Book 3 ends with Korra in a wheelchair.
Yes, it is fantastic because you...
Wait, not to cut you off. What blows my mind, though, is that, like, I can say that book 3 ends with Korra in a wheelchair, and you know that, but you still say, like, it would have been the perfect ending. They should have just let the series off like that.
No, it wouldn't have been the perfect ending, but, like, okay, so... If it had ended almost the same way, but her not in a wheelchair, would have been awesome. It would have been great because Jinora, Tenzin's daughter, becomes an airbending master. She gets her tattoo, she shaves her head, and she becomes
that moment is incredible too.
I know. She becomes the second airbending master in 100 years or something like that. And it's fantastic, and I love it. And one of the things I mentioned about it was that what I really liked about Legend of Korra was like there didn't really seem to be, for the most part, any kind of weird sexual gender divide. When Tenzin is bald, Aang as an adult is bald, Aang as a young child is bald because they have their tattoos and it's
part of their culture.
Exactly, it's part of their culture. Yeah. The monks, they're all bald and they shave so they can feel like the wind resistance and get better fighting when with their airbending and whatnot. And one of the things I love was that she shaves her head and she gets her tattoos, and that's part of the ceremony. And it's nothing weird. Nobody makes a big deal about her being bald. She doesn't get
being
teased.
a girl and shaving her head and things like that.
And I thought it was great. It was like, oh my god. The highlight is that she becomes a master and she gets her airbending master tattoos. And there is nothing else about, it's weird for a girl to be bald, or it's weird for a girl to be master. It's like, it was nothing like that, and I loved it. I loved that it was so completely fair and equal and just neutral. Yeah, I loved it.
We can touch more on this later, but like one thing to point out, since you mentioned it kind of right here, is like the whole show like handles kind of like a gender equality, at least I feel, for the most part, like really, really well. Korra's a strong character, and like you said, what's her name? Jinora, and so and just and what's Mako's / Korra's maybe girlfriend's name?
Asami?
Yeah. I'm for the record, anybody who's ever listened to one of our podcasts, I'm horrible at remembering names, and Gina is just like amazing at it. And so I do not hesitate to ask her these things. I'm just like, bald guy, girl with brown hair.
Little brother.
And you're like, no, that's Korra. I'm like, I knew that. Korra. Exactly. What did we just watch?
And as a dark-skinned woman, I love that Korra is dark-skinned. I know it's weird. Everyone in this world, like, they're divided by bending abilities and not necessarily, like, ethnicity or race or whatnot. But I love that she's a dark-skinned heroine. That was awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so man, moving on then, I guess. So book 4 is called Balance. I wrote here, giant robot season.
Even though it only takes up like one episode of the season.
A couple in the end, I said, here's what I wrote about this, kind of sarcastically. I said, yes, it explores post-traumatic stress and things of that nature early on. I said, but it's got like this prince character who's incredibly annoying the whole time. Part of like the prince character is just, he's going to inherit like the Earth Kingdom and stuff like that. And Mako, who we haven't really talked about the supporting cast, and we will. Mako's a member of the core supporting cast, is tasked with like supervising / protecting this prince. Oh, she's a horrible character. So like the main villain, I forget her name, but she's not really interesting, nor her goals or her plight
Kuvira.
or her like backstory or anything like that. Voiced by Zelda Williams, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
which I do think is like kind of cool. And I just said like the ending to the series that everybody raved about, like Twitter blew up on it, Facebook, like anywhere you could read or hear people talking about like the show, they raved about the last moments of the final episode of the series and just how important it was for animation and characters and Nickelodeon and how powerful it was. Essentially it's Korra and Asami walking into like into the third spirit portal that gets generated from the I don't know, just kind of like the main plight of like the main arc and stuff like that. And they, at the last moments before they're kind of like whisked away and the show fades out for a final time, they hold hands. And kind of like the whole on and off throughout the book 4 leading up to this point and stuff like that, you realize that like while Korra was kind of like on her own and exploring herself and like the world and dealing with like her post-traumatic stress that she had pent up from everything that she had, like, you know, all the mental anguish she suffered from books 1, 2, and especially 3, and how terrified she was from all of the encounters. Yeah, like I thought that was like really, really cool. But she keeps in touch with like Asami and not any of like her guy friends and things like that. And so while they never, I feel like they never like strongly alluded to Korra, you know, like potentially being like interested in either like just women or like men and women and things like that. The fact that like this concept like floored people was, I don't know, it was just like it was sort of like disappointing to me, I guess, a little bit. Like I don't know, I wish that we could get to like, you know, for example, like tonight, this is kind of, no, this ties in like tonight at work and stuff like that. Like I met somebody who I had previously been like emailing for like my day job and stuff like that, and when I finally met them in person for the first time, they were dropping off product, and they introduced, it was this guy, and he introduced his boyfriend to me, who was just like standing there, was like, oh, it's my boyfriend so and so, and I was just kind of like, oh, cool, nice to meet you both, you know. I don't really think twice about like the fact, you know, of like oh, these guys are gay together, you know.
Yeah.
And so, but it just seemed like the whole world was like fascinated with the fact that like Korra might be gay, you know.
For me, what it was like disappointing was the whole 4th season.
Okay.
And so like I understand that was like a big focus, but when I was looking at the whole 4th season, it was boring. It was just, yeah, it was boring. It was uneventful. I couldn't really attach myself to, you know, the new villains. I couldn't really get a feel for, you know, their passions and their motives. What was amazing was in the very beginning, the very first episode, you learn that book 4 is 3 years later. You realize that 3 years have gone by since Korra had her big showdown with Sahir. She gets pummeled by him. She ends up in a wheelchair. And you learn that in those 3 years, you know, she thinks, oh, it'll take a couple weeks and I'll be back at my tip-top shape. And it takes her years. Like, she can't walk for at least 6 months, and she's there with Master Katara trying to be healed, you know, trying to use her water bending to figure out what's wrong, trying to get her just to walk again.
Yeah,
and so
that was really powerful. Like watching her like try to just struggle to walk.
Exactly.
Was almost like tear-inducing a little bit, you know.
Yeah, and so you know, she realized that in 3 years she's barely even able to just kind of like function on a day-to-day basis. And the 6 months up before the first episode, she's wandering the world trying to just figure out who she is and how to get back on top and how to, you know, get back into a decent mental state. And I think, oh my god, this season is starting off amazing. And the first couple episodes they're great, because
the first few are really,
you
really
see
good.
that she's like trying to like cage fight almost, and you know, and she's cut her hair and she's gotten rid of her water tribe garb, and she's trying to just assimilate into somebody who's not the Avatar, and she doesn't want people to know it, as we're for, you know, books 1 through 3, she's boasting to every other person, I'm the Avatar, and here she's like, I don't know who that is, I don't know who, I may look like her, but that's not me.
Yeah.
And
never met her.
Exactly, yeah. And the season just dwindles. Like, you don't get, Kuvira I couldn't really care much about. The episodes just kind of, they're drawn out, they're long, they're not eventful. There are a couple of, you know, battles that are great and a couple of scenes that are awesome, but overall, the season was just blah. So when you get to the end and, you know, her and Asami walk off, you had mentioned that you felt like it came out of nowhere, like you didn't see any hinting to it. And I had, like, throughout book 4, there were like hints to it and whatnot. But I felt like they were kind of forced. I felt like they should have been much more gradual or much more, either more often and a little more subtle. But I felt like it just wasn't, I don't know, yeah, it wasn't smooth enough.
Okay.
So it happened. I was like, oh, okay, I did kind of see that coming, but I felt like they were forced. I wish it would have been just a little softer, a little subtler, and then it would have been like, oh, like you do see it coming, and you just kind of
sweet,
and then you try, and you just embrace it in the end, not like it was almost forced. Yeah. Like I'm not sure. I don't. Yeah.
I guess one of the things that, like you said, like the first few episodes of book 4 were really, really good and still really, really powerful, and I don't feel. Maybe in the beginning of watching like book 4 there was like a little bit of denial, but then during like some of our breaks and stuff like that we'd talk to each other and just be like, this isn't that good, is it?
Or like they have 6 episodes to get better, like,
I know, like, is it gonna happen? And one of the reasons why like we knew just like internally and maybe even externally that it wasn't as good as like book 3 and definitely book 1, but book 3 was because in book 3, almost every single episode at some point like had us like almost like tearing up or like riveted or something like that. Whereas we just watched book 4 and we're just like sitting there just
like
watching.
Robots.
Like robots. Yeah. So like
emotionless.
Yes, exactly. And there was some like fun stuff with like Varric and Julie. And,
and they were cute and fun, but it was just not nearly as emotionally stimulating as book 3. No comparison at all. It felt like they were just trying to whip something together, or like B Team was back or something, but it was just completely disappointing the entire season.
There was literally a giant robot. They battle a giant robot in the end. This robot was piloted by a very uninteresting woman.
Yes, very plain, very boring, very just like one-dimensional.
Like, I'm gonna leave your military, Lynn's sister, because you're not strong enough and don't want to unite the world, and I do, but in the process I'm going to become a tyrant, like I'm uniting the people, but I'm sort of a conqueror, like what about post-traumatic stress and like all these other things, and I don't know. Okay, so we're not going to beat a dead horse on that one. We weren't fans of book 4 whatsoever. Let's take the opportunity then to talk about not only the supporting cast, but just some of our favorite moments from the series. I kind of figure like the two are like tied to tied, like just like some of the highlights and stuff like that. It could be like, if we remember any specific like combat segments or just kind of like things people said or like characters and stuff like that. Like, for example, I absolutely, kind of like looking back on it, adore like the Nuktuk stuff with like Bolin and whatnot. Like, I thought that was really cool. And Varric's character is just like this very rich entrepreneurial, or the word I'm trying to say, kind of like chauvinistic guy who bosses around his secretary, his literally like personal assistant, scrubs his feet, Julie. At the end of the series, like they get married and stuff like that. It was
after
really
she
cool.
ditches him and teaches him a lesson.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. She's not bossed around by him by the end and stuff like that. That was really good. Some of like the combat moments were incredible. Like you were saying when was it Lynn or Lynn's sister?
Lynn's sister, Sue.
So they're fighting the combustion bender.
Yes.
Towards the end of book 3.
Yes.
And the way that they
defeat her.
They killed her.
Yeah,
yes.
they kill her.
Was like, okay, so Lynn and her sister are both metal benders, which is kind of like a subset of like earthbenders for like somebody who doesn't know, which I said you shouldn't be watching this podcast. Go watch the show. Anyways, they was it like a piece of armor or something like that?
She had armor on.
Yeah, she metal bends the armor off of her body, flings it at the combustion bender, and makes it so that her armor wraps around the combustion bender's head.
As soon as
while she's in the process of combustion bending, she basically like explodes, causes her own head to like explode within the armor that's wrapped around her face.
Yeah, we actually watched this in slow motion because we wanted to go back and see.
It was just like it happened so fast.
Yeah, because we wanted to.
We were like, did that really just happen?
And we didn't even wait till the end of the episode. We're like, no, we gotta go back. And so we see in slow motion Sue's armor. She rips off of her body, launches it in front of her because the combustion lady's Pai Li, I think her name is.
Okay.
Her back is towards Sue. Wraps it around her head. You see it close, and then half a second later, you see it kind of bust open a little.
Yeah.
And in the cracks, you see the flames and the fire pull through. And then you see Zahir just turn around and look, and almost his lip quivering, knowing that she's dead.
Because they were a couple.
Yes, exactly.
Thing.
They were in love.
Yeah.
And it's not just like, oh, this person got defeated. Like when you're playing Pokemon and, oh, they faint.
She didn't get fainted.
No, she didn't faint. Yeah, she's dead. Like they blew up her head. They allowed her to blow up her own head, which I just thought was incredible.
You know what I wonder about that? Like from a production standpoint, granted this would be expensive, but with the way that they cut it and the way that it was so fast, and the fact that we had to watch it in slow motion to pull the details out of it, I wonder if there's a cut out there somewhere inside Nickelodeon where that scene is cut just a little bit differently. Like, I wonder if they animated just a little bit beyond what we got to see. So you can, I'm not saying like watch a gory explosion or anything like that, but I'm wondering if there's like a quarter of a second or half a second more of that armor cracking and breaking with light coming around it. You know what I mean? And like somewhere, some producer or somewhere said like,
this is Nickelodeon. We should probably stop.
We still can't. We get away with like spectacularly awesome action scenes, but that's just nasty.
Well, remember that those episodes didn't air on TV though.
Oh my gosh, they were on Amazon.
Those
or something,
were
right?
only online. Yeah.
Oh.
So who knows? Who knows what else or what more they could have done? But it was disturbingly fantastic.
Maybe they were just like, yes, that this just happened, and we don't need to be distasteful about it.
Exactly. Right. It's online. If you don't know what your kids are doing online, it's your fault.
We don't need to. If they want the slow motion replay, they'll buy the disc or download it and watch it themselves.
Oh man. So another favorite moment of mine.
Yeah.
Season 1, last episode, season finale, where everyone finds out Amon is actually a waterbender, and so all the Equalists, of course, are like betrayed by him. Because like, oh my god, we're Equalists and you're a waterbender, whatever. He grabs his brother, who you find out is the defender or public defender of Republic City or whatnot, who's like this evil lawyer. And you find out he was corrupt politician, whatever. And you find out they're brothers. And he had kidnapped his brother because it was getting in the way. So he goes, he rescues his brother. They're on a boat in the middle of the ocean. He's like, oh man, we're gonna fulfill Dad's wishes still. We're gonna come back and we're gonna conquer all of them. And he's driving the boat, and his brother's in the back, facing his back. And you can just see in his face, he's like, yeah, sure, brother. But he totally does not care about this motive anymore. And he gets this glove that, imitates lightning bending. Puts it above like the gas tank, and he kills them. Boom.
The boat explodes.
And the two of them are dead.
And they're just dead. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not one of these things. They didn't faint. Your Pokemon didn't faint. He died, and he killed him. They were murdered.
He killed himself and his brother.
Exactly. It wasn't just like, oh, it was some boating accident. It was like, no, he killed him. And I was just like, this is great. This is incredible. People don't die in Avatar, but they do here. And it was not just, they didn't just die. Murder, suicide, and they're brothers. And he does it because he knows. And it's not like it wasn't a battle for power. It was like, no, you need to be stopped. You're my brother, but this needs to end. And I was just like, emotions going crazy. Yes, amazing and sad, but just like this corrupt politician who's finally doing the right thing and ridding the world of this psychopath.
Yeah.
Oh man, yes, one of my favorite parts.
Like some other highlights. Would be every time you see Uncle Iroh in the spirit world.
Yes,
and our hearts
Iroh.
just melt.
My favorite character from Last Airbender is Uncle Iroh.
The fact that they named the firebending brother Mako after Mako, the voice actor who played Uncle Iroh early in Last Airbender before he passed away.
Exactly. If you ever forget what episode it is, but you'll see it's the episode where Iroh's kind of giving tribute to his son. It's the anniversary. I think it's his son's birthday. His son has died.
In Last Airbender?
Yes, and at the very end of the episode, it says in loving memory.
And we were
Mako.
like, what?
Yeah.
Because we're so out of the loop with it all.
And it was just like, he had died. And I was like, oh my God.
All of that anticipation in season 3 to find out like what his new voice actor would sound like and stuff like that. Actually, I don't know the name of the gentleman that they found to do it, but he actually does a superb job of carrying forth the spirit of that character's tone and mannerisms and things like that with the way that he talks and stuff like that. So every time you see Uncle Iroh in the spirit world in The Legend of Korra, it's just like our hearts melt and hearing him talk and realizing that he kind of like he went to the spirit world of his own accord.
Yes.
He wasn't defeated in battle. He didn't really, I mean, at some point his body would have passed away, you know, but even they made it sound like before he even possibly like died of old age or something like that, that he was just able to transport his spirit through some sort of meditation into the spirit realm and exist there.
Yeah, he was like, you know what? My time here is done. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm heading out. I got nothing left to do here. Yeah. And so if you haven't seen Last Airbender and you watch Korra, you are getting nothing out of this character. It's like, oh, okay, some old man in the spirit world. No, you do not understand how awesome Uncle Iroh is. Like, you just... Oh, you don't know.
And then so like piggybacking that, like seeing Zuko be old.
Yeah.
And like with his dragon that looks incredible.
Yes, where did his dragon come from?
Yeah. And then isn't there one line where Korra tells him briefly in passing, like, oh, I like
saw your uncle.
And he was just like, you saw my uncle? Yeah, I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
you know, essentially like, oh my God. Because like Zuko is, you know, in like Last Airbender was kind of like Korra in that he's never been in touch with like his spiritual side.
Yeah.
Full of lots of potential.
Very
kind of like a
angry
fierce
child.
warrior, you know, but not spiritual.
Not at all.
And so
and
like
Iroh was the one who kept him in check a lot, and he betrayed him. I don't know how. Zuko betrayed Iroh I don't know how many times, and he hurt him I don't know how many times, and he was constantly there for him. So when he, you know, tells him, Korra's like, yeah, I've seen your uncle a couple of times actually.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh my God, like uncle, like the person who led me down the right path, the person who never gave up on me. And it's just like, oh, it's heartwarming. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Going down the list, because it's hard not to feel like super just like, woo, about, you know, like seeing all the characters that are old. Was it book 4 where we see Toph?
Yeah.
Like Toph when she's old and gray and
but happy.
Happy living
any...
alone in like some great spirit tree where she can actually use her. She's like the greatest earthbender in the world.
Yeah.
And that tree is massive, and its roots span pretty much the globe, I guess you could say.
It's roots. Illinois roots.
It's my Midwest accent. And so she's really happy there and can keep tabs on everything that's going on in the world and stuff like that through just like feeling vibrations and spiritual energy like through the tree and stuff like that. Anyways, like Korra gets some like training with her, and like Toph helps her get like poison out of her body, and she calls Korra like Twinkle Toes.
Yep.
Because she knows that Avatar Aang's like body was like reincarnated into Korra.
Yep.
And so that's cool because like Aang and Toph always had just kind of like a really fun relationship and things like that. It's cool that like Toph's kids play like a big part in like the series and stuff like that. Those two the metal bending in books like 3 and 4 and pretty much the whole series is just like out of control in the best possible way. Like some of those fight scenes are just amazing. The action in Legend of Korra is just incredible. Not only like the choreography that like whoever, you know, choreographed it and stuff like that, but then like the animation that goes along with it is always just like superb. You know, like you said, even book 4, for as overall disappointing as we felt it was, had some like incredible fight scenes, you know. Giant robots notwithstanding.
I know. I guess some not along the lines of our favorite moments or whatnot, but things that like kind of surprise me. So like when it starts, you know, of course, Aang is gone, and you're realizing throughout 4 books who's alive and who's gone. And we never see Sokka except for in a flashback. So we know
that was kind of heartbreaking.
Exactly. So Sokka's gone. We don't know how or when or under what means or whatnot. But like he doesn't exist in.
He's not old. He's not old.
Yeah,
he didn't get
gone.
to be an old man like his sister did and stuff like that. And same thing with Aang. We never find out exactly how he.
Like if it was a peaceful, just old age death, or if it was like a battle death, or you know, they never touch upon that. Yeah. Suki, we never find out. Of course, you know her and Sokka, so it's like assuming whatever happens, they both went off.
You know what? Like, sorry, I'm gonna butt in here just because you got me on like the train of thought. I think that's one of the most disappointing things then about like book 4 is that. Because we felt like the whole arc was sort of like pointless and unneeded and like just didn't like really go anywhere and wasn't interesting. It's sort of like a lot of squandered time they could have addressed so many of these things that would have been like incredibly powerful and emotionally impactful for us to find out about and stuff like that. You know, and wrapped it around like a main arc for Korra herself and stuff like that. And they didn't do any of that stuff.
Well, one thing I was really hoping that they were going to do that they never even touched upon ever again, which pissed me off, was that Korra loses her ability to speak to her past avatars.
Yeah.
In that battle with Batu, they beat Rava out of her, and she loses her connection with every other past avatar. So how Aang had like Roku and Kyoshi, and he was able to go and talk back and get advice from them when he was lost and struggling. She loses it, and they never touch upon it again. They never say, okay, this is what she's gonna go through. These are some steps. She's like, nope, it's gone, and that's it.
It's just
and
gone.
It's never even an issue. Nobody ever asks her about it again. I think maybe one time she says it, but that's it. It's like, okay, well, what are you gonna do? You can't just like, what meditation do you have to do? Who do you have to see? What do you have to, think about or try or struggle with? Like, I wish that had been a part, but there were so many other things they could have done with season 4, and they dropped the ball.
Do you wish that then that in addressing it that like they would have built some sort of an arc where she could have gained that ability back,
or at least have it been like a side story to fulfilling the arc of season 4, even if she didn't get them back, even if she remained cut off from her past avatars, there should have been something that addressed what it was or how she could have done it, or her finding out that she couldn't, and then what's she gonna do? Like, it was almost like
I wonder if the message in that and kind of like one of the things that they were trying to like work with as far as like their themes were concerned was just sort of like this idea of, it's a wonderful thing to like have elders in your life who can like bestow knowledge upon you, of the life lessons that they've learned and stuff like that. But at a certain point, you just got to, put your own 2 feet forward and kind of like live your own life and make your own decisions and stuff like that. I felt like that's what they were sort of trying to say with that.
I felt it was kind of like, in a similar respect, it was kind of like the, commentary on how in Eastern civilization, elders are very highly respected. And here in America, we shove them off to retirement homes and nursing homes, and we don't see them for months at a time. And it's like, it's that thing where it's like, this is what we're doing ourselves. We are completely cutting ourselves off from this culture and this heritage and these stories and this history that we're just like, nah, we don't care about it. Eastern civilizations do, and they respect it and admire it, and it's highly revered, and not us.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, before we kind of move on to the finale here, I guess, is there anything else that you wanted to say about like any of like the sub characters and the supporting cast and stuff like that? I know you have like a really soft spot for Bolin, and thought he was kind of like
it's too much.
There's so many of them.
Yeah, I love. Yeah, Bolin was fun. He was like the Uncle Iroh. He wasn't like the wisdom and then anybody that just seek to get that kind of advice from, but he was just. His comic relief was so heartwarming and genuine, and it wasn't cheesy or childish. It was just like, it was great.
It was kind of like the best kind of comic relief that show
it's
could have ever asked
what
for.
They needed, and the timing was right, and he was just, I loved it. I loved the fire ferrets. I loved when they were battling. I loved that whole first season, little mini story of her becoming a pro bender. I love the fact that they made, now it's pro bending. Like they've commercialized it. Like everybody does everything now in society. They've commercialized
80 years later.
Exactly. It's a natural talent. And it's like, well, we're not at war anymore. We're not fighting. Let's fight for money. Let's fight for prestige. And it's like, that's great. I loved it.
It's like we learned how to carve wood. Baseball.
Exactly. Right?
Oh man. So
okay. I think of anything else I want to touch upon. Anything?
Anything? It'll come up later, and we'll do a second Korra podcast.
Probably, yeah. And I think I've hit the main points.
Okay, so this isn't really a fair question, but if you could only take either The Last Airbender or Legend of Korra with you to a desert island, which one would you take?
Oh, Korra.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, in this desert, in this, like, mythical, hypothetical world you're creating, have I seen both series already?
Yeah.
Okay, Korra. Because Korra, for the parts that I was disappointed by, when it was emotional and it was good, it was good. It was better than Avatar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Its highs, especially in book 3, on a constant level, like, surpassed Avatar.
Like, Avatar was, good and heartwarming. Oh, yeah, it was really cool. It was a good fight scene. But Korra was like, oh, my God, I need to wipe my eyes because somebody is dying or almost died. And it's like they are at the absolute brink of whatever they're going to be facing. And no, hands down. But just up until season 3.
So, at some point in the distant future, the year 2000, not only do I want to watch all of it all over again, but I really want to, I don't know, like, reapproach book 4 and see if I can get anything more out of it watching it again. See if I can pick up on some more of the subtleties about them hinting at her relationship with Asami and things like that, and just see if, I don't know, if I can do something to expand my mind to find the main villain more interesting or something. Like, I want to like it more.
We have to watch the special features and see if there's anything in there that might make it a little more enjoyable as well. We totally skipped over that.
Sometimes you watch a movie you feel lukewarm about, and then you find out all the struggles and everything they went through in the production, and then you just appreciate it a lot more.
Like, oh, okay, all right, you guys are
cool. Kind of like we said, that the bar that they set with book 3 might very well have been impossible to ever pass because it was that good.
It was
we walked away from I tweeted about it. I was like, at the end of book 3, I tweeted that it is the greatest show that I've ever seen in my entire life.
And then we watched season 4 and we're like, we should have waited to say that.
At first you felt like it kind of like marred your entire opinion of the entire show. I was like, we'll cool off of it, and we'll realize that it's still an incredible journey.
We had to take a break. Like season 3 we watched nonstop, back to back to back to back, and season 4 we're like, we like, there were days where we're like, want to watch it, and we're like, no, not today. We actually kind of had to push ourselves to finish it.
So for the finale here, I just wanted to know your thoughts on, like, do you want them to do more? Do you want them to continue with like the Avatar saga? And if so, like, do you have any ideas of like a cool direction that they could go with it and stuff like that? Like, should they go 80 years into the future again? Should they just leave it? Should they animate the book 4 epilogue movie? That's just like the honeymoon epilogue.
I don't know. I mean, I love the whole Avatar universe. I love it. When they went back to the first Avatar and they talked about how different cultures had the different bending and how they got it, and how the what are the turtles? Oh God, what are the turtles? The lion turtles. Bestowed upon these individuals the power, and how one person got all of them. It was fantastic. Like, if they did like a retro version and they went back to before Aang and Korra, that'd be awesome. If they went after, it would just have to be something so different. Like, the difference between Korra and Avatar, just because of the progress in technology and culture, was fantastic, and it made for a really good basis. If they went ahead of that, like, I don't know what they could do, as long as it was original, as long as it was very much different. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'd be incredible. I would love to see more of it, but you don't want to be you don't want them to overdo it. You don't want to, beat a dead horse. It's just if it's, leave it on a semi decent note, but don't drag it down. I
agree. I agree with that like, maybe they should just leave it alone, because they've created like 2 like masterful like arcs like so far. That said, if they do continue it, I'd be incredibly interested to see the kind of ideas that they could pull together for like I said, kind of like a sci-fi version of the show, because like
super futuristic.
Like we said, like they're like mastering the elements in Korra, and learning how to use electricity and like the elements to advance civilization and things like that. And so like once they master like electricity even more, and
it's weird though, because when you think like futuristic, you think like flying cars, but they already have like flying bison.
They do.
So it's like there's things that they can just come like bypass completely. Like, they don't have to
airships.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, see, there
like
you go.
Zeppelins
so it's, like,
that they actually use.
That's right.
We just have like the Goodyear blimp now.
Yeah, so it's like if they can, if they had really good storytelling, good original ideas, yes, I would love to see more, but I don't want them to ruin it either.
Do you think that they might have purposefully left out some of the information about Aang and those journeys and stuff like that, because we're actually going to get a story about kind of like Aang, say from like age 20 to 30 or something like that?
I don't know, but I want to find out what happened to Zuko's mom. That's right.
That's right. Zuko's mom's story.
Yes, the final episode of Avatar. Last Airbender. He goes to his dad and he's like, "What happened to my mother?" And he lets him know that when she left, she was alive. We don't know if she was still alive by that time. But then Katara says, "Oh, that's an interesting story. Let me tell you about it." So I'm assuming he found her, but I still want to know. I want to know what happened. What happened to her all those years?
Yeah.
Exactly how she probably killed the grandpa and let him stick it to him. But yeah, they never even talked. I was like, "Oh, you teasers."
So do you want the 2-hour movie that you can go watch in theaters to like tell this story, or do you want?
I want a series. I want to be able to. Yeah. I want 24 awesome episodes or something. I don't know, but I want something good.
Do you think that it would be badass to find out something like Aang actually, you know, like went with Zuko to go help find his mom and like different things like that, and just about how, you know, how they became like even better friends and like different, like that'd be an amazing story that they could tell also.
Yeah, and just one little minor thing that we were talking about, how, because that would be heartwarming. Because of the timeline and how old Korra was, we had mentioned that Aang did not meet his grandchildren because of how old Korra was, and when Aang would have had to die, his grandchildren are much younger than her, and that was one thing where I was like, oh, that's sad. Like, that would have been... You realize he never met them. He never got to see him. He never got to see his little airbenders, just, you know, only Tenzin. And his Boomy and Kaya, who, again, Kaya disappears during book 4. You have no idea where she went. Nobody even talks about her, but anyways...
So I guess my point being that even without like stretching for ideas, I feel like there are so many unanswered mysteries and stories in this world that they could have like some incredible like core content to like present to us over like, you know, 4 more books or something like that. And they'd be benefiting from the fact that these characters are like, once again, you know, familiar, yet they're older, so they don't have to like, you know, tell stories about like 12-year-old Aang anymore and stuff like that. So like people who have like continued to like grow up with like the Avatar series, they'll still appreciate like a story of like Aang in his like mid-20s and 30s and stuff like that. It'd still be really cool, you know?
And still figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how to develop a whole new city where there's cars and whatnot. But yep.
So, I mean, overall, I think it's obvious to say that we both just love and adore The Last Airbender and Korra. I feel like if you listen to this podcast and you're gonna go into Korra for the very first time, I'd say know this: the first 3 books are absolutely incredible, with it peaking, I think, in book 3. And if you can look at book 4, and I think these are somebody else's words that we actually read online when we were kind of like doing a little bit of research on book 4, but that I entirely agree with, is that if you can go into book 4 kind of like expecting it to be just one giant epilogue to book 3, and just sort of like ride it out, just ride out Korra. No, like this is gonna end, you know. It's gonna end and it's never gonna reach the heights of book 3. Then like maybe you'll be okay with it, and you'll just be able to be like, wow.
Or maybe you'll love it. Maybe you'll actually like the villain and the storyline. Maybe that's great. You'll enjoy it more than we did.
We joked around that giant robot fans were like, might have been like, oh my god, just like
the last 2 episodes where that giant robot
just
appears.
Epic.
Right?
Yeah, the series peaked there. Julie did the thing. There was a giant robot, and
they blew up a portal.
Yeah, and now everybody can write Korra and Asami fan fiction. Till the end of days.
Oh man.
So, yeah.
That's it.
Anything else you want to add?
Nope, I'm done.
Wow, we did this thing.
Okay.
We did the thing, Gina.
Oh, God, you're a dork.
Okay, so for 30andnerdy.com, I'm Matt.
I'm Gina.
You can reach us on Twitter at 30andnerdy. We've got a Facebook page. It's like facebook.com/30andnerdy. Obviously, we have 30andnerdy.com. We got other podcasts on there. It's just kind of like different articles and blogs and top 10 lists and like all sorts of stuff that you can check out on there. We got a YouTube channel also. I forget what it is. If you search like YouTube for like 30 and Nerdy, we haven't done like too much with it now. We got like some cool like Evil Within videos and stuff like that up there. But you know, we're looking to roll out a whole bunch more content here in the future. So yeah, thanks for listening.
Yep. See you.
Go watch Korra.
Yeah.
Later. Gina. Do the thing.